you're doing great. Today we're going to be doing sound part 3. This is the final video for sound and then we'll be done with it. So let's get started. I'm really excited to teach you all about sound. As a chapter, find it very interesting. So let's just get started. Sound part 3. Echo formula. So the formula for calculating the speed, distance between the source of sound and the obstacle, and the time period for an echo is as follows. So if you all remember, last time I had told you all that I will be teaching you how to calculate the distance between the two sound waves or the time taken and the speed in this sound part 3. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. So I'm just going to read the sentence again so that you all completely understand it. The formula for calculating the speed, this refers to the speed of the sound wave, distance between the source and the obstacle, and the time period for an echo. Now, time period is basically if I produce a sound wave, it goes to an obstacle and it returns. So the total amount of time taken for this entire process refers to the time period of the echo. So this is the formula: speed of sound in air equals to 2 into distance between source and obstacle divided by time taken. Now, you may wonder, why is the 2 here? Usually, the formula for speed is distance upon time. So what is the 2 doing here? Now, I'll explain that. When we consider time taken, this time is not only the time taken for the sound wave to go from the source to the obstacle. It includes the time taken for the sound wave to go from source to obstacle and then back from obstacle to source. Since the distance being covered by the sound wave is twice that of between the source and the obstacle, we have to take the distance twice. If we could somehow calculate the time taken for the sound wave to go from the source to the obstacle, then it would just be distance between the source and obstacle divided by the time taken for the sound wave to go from source to obstacle. But since there is no clear-cut method to do that, we take the time taken for the sound wave to go from source to obstacle and back. So therefore, if I can illustrate it through this diagram, here let's say that the distance between the source and the obstacle is d. So the total distance that the sound wave covers from going from here to here, that is d, and then coming back, which is d again, which is d plus d, which is 2d. So speed of sound in air can be given as 2d by t. So this was the formula for echo. It's obvious. Like there are 3 quantities here. There is speed, there is distance, there is time. If we have any 2 of these, we can calculate the third one. If for example, we have the distance and we have time, then we can calculate speed through the formula. Now we'll see sonar or echo sounding. I don't know if you've heard this before or not. I'll teach it to you quick. I hope you understand it. The process of calculating the position of an obstacle by producing echo is called echo sounding. Now, what do we mean by saying the position of an obstacle? What does position of an obstacle mean? So it can mean that how far the obstacle is from you, how close it is to you, is it stationary, how far is it moving, is it moving away from you, is it moving towards you? This can be referred to, all this comes under position of an obstacle. And this is by producing echo, is called echo sounding. Now we know what echo is, but what is producing echo? So basically, by producing sound waves that travel to an obstacle and come back, since this reflected sound is an echo, we call it as producing echo. And this entire process is called echo sounding. I'll just repeat again. The process of calculating the position of an obstacle by producing echo is called echo sounding. And the more common name for this is called sonar, which stands for sound, navigation, and range. And we'll look at some real life examples of sonar, and I'll explain you the mechanism behind them. Firstly, there is ships to detect submarines. Here, the source of sound waves is the ship, and the obstacle can be anything. It can be an enemy submarine, it can be a sunken ship, and it can also be a whale. So here in this diagram, you can see more picture like than diagram. So if this is the source of sound, it produces sound waves which go and travel to this obstacle and they reflect back to the ship. Now this ship also has a system which can catch these reflected sound after it catches the reflected sound using the formula that we just learned, it can calculate the distance of the obstacle from the ship. And through that, it can determine if it's an enemy ship or some other thing, and if it has a threat to them. Now we can see bats. Now, bats to detect any obstacles. You must be knowing that, oh, bats don't have good vision. Yes, they don't have very great vision, but in place of this, they have very good hearing. They have excellent hearing. So what we know about bats is that they are capable to produce and hear sounds of very high frequencies. So how do they propagate at night? How do they travel at night so easily? What they do is that while they are in air, while they are flying, they produce such sounds. These sounds go and reflect from any obstacles in their way. These obstacles can be another bird, it can be a wall, it can be a tree. They reflect and they return to the bat's ears. When they return to the bat's ears perceive it, and they understand where the obstacle is, the position of the obstacle. And when they're flying, then they try to avoid that. This is how they don't just crash into certain obstacles while they're flying. And to calculate the depth of the sea, this mechanism is very similar to ships to detect submarines, one that I just did. And dolphins is also similar to what bats do. Now we do terms related to a sound wave. These are very important. These are used even in 12th grade physics. Now, I know all of you may not be planning on pursuing physics, but these are very important in grade 10 as well. So these are mainly oscillation, amplitude, frequency, and time wave. So what is oscillation? The to and fro movement that constitutes a wave. Now, what do you mean by to and fro? To is this and fro is this. So if I want to say what an oscillation is, I can say that if this is the mean position, then a body that goes from here to here, back here, then back here, and then basically something that's doing this is performing an oscillation. Then we have amplitude, the maximum displacement of a wave on either side of its mean position. If we look at the diagram here, the maximum displacement is from here to here. This is the maximum point that the wave is going to. And we have to know that this point, this distance is equal to this distance. The distance above the mean position is equal to the distance below the mean position. That is the maximum displacement of a wave on either side of its mean position. The SI unit of amplitude is meter because we are measuring distance. Then we have frequency, the number of waves produced by the source in 1 second. Number of sound waves produced by a source of sound in 1 second is called frequency, whose SI units is hertz. Suppose there are two sources of sound. The first one is producing 5 sound waves per second, and the second one is producing 3 sound waves per second. So the frequency of the first one is 5 hertz, whereas that of the second one is 3 hertz. Here now we have time period. So the time taken by a wave to complete one oscillation. So it can be when a body goes from here to here to here and back to the mean position, that is the time period of a wave. And the SI unit of that is second, obviously, because we are measuring time. Now we have audible and inaudible sound. So what do we understand by these two terms? Audible is basically sound that we can hear. Inaudible means sound we cannot hear. Pretty simple, right? Now we have infrasonic sound, sonic sound, and ultrasonic sound. We just learned what frequency is. So infrasonic sound has a frequency that is below 20 hertz. Sonic sound is between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. And ultrasonic sound is above 20,000 hertz. Now there are a number of species that can detect these sounds and some that can't. We humans can detect sonic sound. Below 20 hertz, which is infrasonic sound, can be detected by elephants, and above 20,000 hertz, which is ultrasonic sound, can be detected by bats. We already learned that example of bats where they produce such sounds and they reflect from obstacles and the whole and how they propagate. Lastly, we have the characteristics of sound. So here we have mainly loudness, pitch, and quality. Loudness depends on the amplitude of a sound. Remember, the amplitude is this distance from mean position to this. So greater the amplitude, louder is the sound. This differentiates a loud sound from a faint one. So a loud sound would be me screaming, whereas a faint one would be me whispering in your ear. Me whispering in your ear would have a very low amplitude, whereas me screaming will have a very high amplitude. Now we come to pitch. Pitch depends on the frequency of a sound wave. We don't have to confuse frequency with amplitude. Frequency is the number of waves in 1 second. In this diagram that we have here, these two have the same frequency because the same number of waves are being produced in 1 second. This differentiates between a shrill sound and a bass sound. A shrill sound would be me doing E, and a bass sound would be me doing that is the difference in pitch. The shrill one has a higher pitch and the bass one has a lower pitch. Lastly, we come to quality. Let's take an example for this. First, we'll read it. Differentiates two sound with same amplitude and frequency. So suppose you have your mom and you have your aunt. Both of them speak with the same amplitude, same loudness, and both of them speak with the same pitch and frequency. How do you differentiate between their voices? This is done by the quality of the sound waves they produce. The quality of sound waves produced by both of them is very different. And that is how we can differentiate between their voices. Thank you. This is it from sound part 3. I hope you understood everything. Even if you haven't, it's totally fine. Try going through the video again. You may get it. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in the next session. We'll be doing heat. Heat is also a very great chapter to study, learning about many new concepts. And I hope you understood everything. Thank you so much.